friends, and welcome to the webinar that Virgil Geojit Financial Services has organized. Uh, the last 1 year has been, I think we have been hearing this same repeated statement all the time, has been one of the most interesting years that we have witnessed for anybody who has been in the markets. And last year, around the same time, we started the series of webinars, which we did till about October, November. And then the market was doing quite well. And so we took a pause. And now, exactly after 1 year since we met last year, we are back. And again, we have none other than our good friend and colleague of mine, Mr. Gaurang Shah, Senior Vice President, Geojit Financial Services. Thank you very much, Gaurang Bhai, for taking time off
Thank you, sir.
and being with us today. 71% on the Nifty. I think when we spoke last year, none of us, we were all confident. Gaurang has been an eternal optimist. I was just chatting with him a few minutes back. And we expected market to do well, but 71% on the Nifty was something that was unheard of. $38 billion on FII flows. I think it's a record. It's in the history of Indian stock markets. It has never happened. So there has been a lot of pluses, a lot of minuses in terms of what has happened during the last 1 year. And in the last few months, what we are seeing is that we are seeing a lot of volatility in the market. A sudden move in the Sensex of 1,000, 2,000 points, and then a quick recovery. I mean, it is creating a sort of I would say from January of 21, even though we saw an all-time high of 52,500 close to on the Sensex, 15,400 on the Nifty. Today we are at around close to 15,000 levels on the Nifty. Things look generally positive, but from an investor's perspective, there is a question on valuation. I think for the first time after long, our market capitalization to GDP is more than our GDP. That is because the base is lower. People may argue. So there are concerns and questions in the minds of investors as to what can we expect this financial year to be 21-22. Is it going to be the same roller coaster ride that we had last year, or do we have to pause and wait? And stock picking obviously is going to be the key element in anybody's portfolio. To answer all that, I think we have uh, Gaurang Shah, and let me briefly introduce Gaurang Shah to you before he starts. Gaurang started his career in 1993 and has been with Geojit Financial Services from 2004. Gaurang Shah is the face of Geojit on CNBC, TV18, CNBC Awaaz, CNBC Bazaar, ET Now, BTVI, Z Business, Bloomberg, Quint, DD News, and Radio Dubai, offering his views on investment opportunities across sectors and equity markets. He was also acknowledged as the best analyst in Z Business and the best portfolio recommendations given to him in ET Now over the years. He tracks global markets, US, Europe, Asia, and emerging markets and its impact on Indian equity markets. Gaurang Shah monitors the FII and DII activity in the equity markets. In addition, he monitors the changes in government policies with respect to the impact on sectors. He also tracks gold and in the commodity markets and the currency. And and it is our great privilege and pleasure to have Gaurang to address us. Like always, we will have the session. Gaurang will spend a few minutes probably talking about what has happened over the last year and what his views on the markets are going to be. After that, we will have a round of a Q&A session that will be moderated by me. And we will pick up questions from clients. You may ask stock-specific question or sector views that you may want. And if those stocks are in the coverage of Geojit, I'm sure Gaurang will be able to give his viewpoint. So this is going to be a sort of a free-flowing session that we expect to have with Gaurang Shah. I also take this opportunity to welcome our clients from Oman and Kuwait who have joined in this webinar. Hearty welcome to all of you. And without much ado, let me hand over the session to my dear friend and colleague Gaurang Shah.
Thank you so much, Krishnan sir, for all those kind words. And uh, thank you everyone for being a part of this webinar. And once again, thanks to Mr. Krishnan and his team for putting this webinar together and giving me an opportunity to address this esteemed gathering on the present equity market and our outlook for the future. So, as we all know, financial markets across the globe has seen some very difficult times be it the Great Depression or the geopolitical situation in the Middle East or the financial meltdown of 2008, named Lehman Brothers crisis, or in India, our own Harshad Mehta or Ketan Parekh related scams. Even in 2014 and 15, we did see another shock in terms of crude oil prices moving to elevated levels. So, friends, we have overcome all that, and I'm quite sure that we will overcome the present crisis that we are into. The recent COVID-19 pandemic has left all of us in a state of shock with one too many questions and very few respectable answers. Our view when we met last, which was, I believe, on 18th of April 2020, I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong on the date. At that time, the situation was extremely unknown. We didn't know what has hit us. Moreover, we did not know what the outcome is going to be, nor that we know it now. We are still searching for answers. But the fact is that from the levels of 23rd March 2020, when the Sensex touched a low of somewhere close to about 25,981, and on the Nifty, we did see a low of somewhere around 7,610. And when we met last on 18th of April 2020, our view was that if things don't deteriorate, if situation does not worsen, then possibly we would have seen the bottom. And that's what exactly reflected on the markets from those levels. As Krishnan sir was also mentioning, we have come a long way. We have almost more than doubled, both on the Sensex and Nifty, and stock specific, we have gained even more. Purely on fallback of earnings, on fallback of recovery, on fallback of demand supply, whatever you may call it. We were also of that view at that time that though the conditions will improve, if not deteriorate, but volatility is something that will remain, and it will remain at an elevated level. And that's what we have seen in the markets in the near term. The problem is that news flows from the global and local side does not die down when it comes to this pandemic. And virtually every week, every fortnight, we have some new news flows which impact the sentiments in the market, and the market reacts accordingly. But the best part that I see in this crisis is that last year, despite we did not have a cure or a protection seal in form of a vaccine to cure the pandemic, we did manage to come back very smartly. I'm not only talking about Indian markets, I'm talking about global markets as well. But India being a consumption-driven economy, I think it has outperformed to a certain extent. And my sense is that we will possibly overcome these difficult times as well. Now, as we all know, the second wave has hit the Indian subcontinent, and numbers in some of the larger cities like Mumbai, like Delhi, like Bengaluru, and some other cities, including Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, has seen some elevated numbers in the recent time because of this second wave. And most of the state governments have decided to again go into a re-lockdown mode. Unfortunately, whether that will bring down the numbers or not, that only time will tell. But these kind of mini stroke midterm lockdowns has its impact on the markets, on the recovery part, and more so, consumption-driven sectors and companies do take a backseat, at least for the time being. But there are certain positives that has happened in the Indian equity market, be it with respect to the RBI policy, be it with respect to the government policies, be it with respect to the earnings, or be it with respect to the fund flow, which Krishnan sir just mentioned a while back. So the very recently concluded RBI policy, the Honorable RBI Governor has maintained the flow of OMOs, LTROs to provide enough liquidity in the market, lower interest rates. This time, last week when the credit policy was announced, the interest rates were status quo. And the Honorable RBI Governor also mentioned that whenever the economy or corporate India feels the need of liquidity, it will be injected into the system. And whenever the situation arises when there is excess liquidity, then appropriate steps would be taken to suck out that excess liquidity. Now, this has gone down very well with the market, and along with that, friends, the governor maintained the GDP growth rate at 10.50, though the IMF projection is about 12.5 for financial year 22. And on the inflation front, the first quarter this financial year, the targeted is about 5.20. I'm sure it's going to be much more lower than that, unless and until we have some severe lockdowns coming into pan-India and major cities. So this was also supported by the government policy. And the biggest one, friends, was in terms of the financial stimulus that was offered by the government. And along with that, one major scheme that was introduced by the government was the PLI scheme, which is the Production Linked Incentive Scheme. This primarily, as of now, covers close to about 12 to 13 sectors. And the government has also been very vocal enough of bringing in more sectors under this umbrella of PLI, that is Production Linked Incentive Scheme. This should add to the benefits of the corporate India. Consumption is likely to pick up, and more so, earnings will have a positive impact over mid to long term. Very soon, of course, right now we are in the summer season, but very soon we'll have a prediction on the monsoons also coming through, and whatever initial indicators that are told to us that this time too we are possibly going to witness a 100% long-term average monsoon. And if that is the case, then India being an agrarian-driven economy, I think, and large part of its population dependent on agriculture activity, should have a comfort zone. We also had crude oil prices at a lower level, but the recent episodes has seen some boil in the crude oil prices, but it's within the comfort zone of the government. The fifth positive is the total number of population infected in terms of percentage is much, much lower compared to the other countries. I'm talking about India. And on this particular note, we have also seen the markets recover to a substantial level from the lows of 23rd of March 2020. Concerns over moratorium given on repayment of loan for banking sector, both public as well as private, is also history, because the analysts were expecting a much more larger number as far as the moratorium is concerned and the impact on the earnings. But surprisingly, both public as well as private banks have delivered much better numbers. And I'm sure as we go into a normalization of situation, and as we call it, the new normal, the numbers from the banking sector is going to be much, much better because of the impact being much, much lower of this moratorium that was given. The eighth point being India's contribution towards the treatment in form of vaccine of this COVID-19. And lastly, but not least, whatever earnings we have seen for the first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter, and next week, that is from 12th of April, Monday, we are going to see a curtain raiser for the fourth quarter last financial year. And the estimates over there are purely looking at the last 2 quarter earnings for the last financial year, that the fourth quarter is going to be much, much better in terms of color and shade. And in terms of overall performance, corporate India is going to be performing better than what it did in the earlier quarters for the last financial year. All the data points that we have seen on the domestic side, whether it is with respect to the GDP, IIP, or interest rates, have been much, much stronger. And just for your information, friends, I don't know, some of you all might be aware, the last reported GST collection number was at an all-time high. Now, this number of GST collection gives you an indication that recovery is coming back. Because if the recovery was not coming back, then the GST collection would not have hit all-time high. And I'm quite sure that for the coming months, this GST collection is going to be even much, much stronger. Now, where are those points of concern in terms of what can set us back, or what can make us go into a reverse gear? So the concerns, primarily according to me, what I have listed down, is conflict between India and its neighbors, whether it is with respect to COVID-19 and its virus, or interfering approach towards border dispute and its impact on the world order. And we have also seen that China has proactively venturing into certain unnecessary geographies and creating a little bit of turmoil. It happened with India also very lately. The second one is, how do we adjust to the new world order post COVID-19, as I termed it, the new normal. The third being any severe impact of geopolitical situation on the crude oil supply pipeline globally, and that leading to currency crisis. Now, this is subjective, of course. This is just a larger thought that came into my mind, and I thought that I should address this. And the fourth one, and the last being geopolitical situation between India, China, and Pakistan. And as we all know, India is surrounded by two neighbors which are proactively getting involved into uncharted territories, unwanted attempts are made. If these things have to escalate into a larger conflict, then possibly it can set the growth recovery in a backward direction. So overall, friends, steps taken by the government of India, steps taken by the RBI, and whatever be the necessary steps that will be taken in the future as and when the situation arises. Because as I mentioned, we have not been in this situation, and whatever happens every day, every week, every month is something that is very new to us, and we have to approach it in an appropriate manner. And with that respect, the government and the RBI has been vocal enough, including the finance ministry and the finance minister. All of them have been vocal enough that whatever appropriate steps needs to be taken in the situations that may arise in the future, that will be taken, and they will make sure that growth path is not sacrificed at any given point of time. Stability and normalcy returning is much better. Vaccination process has been in an overdrive mode. Unfortunately, over the last 2-3 days, there were disturbing reports of certain states reporting that they are running short on vaccines, etc. But I'm sure the meeting that was headed by the Honorable Prime Minister 2 or 3 days back, along with all the chief ministers to address this particular issue, will definitely throw in some positive numbers. FI flows have been robust, and according to what data I have received recently for the month of March, the data in terms of inflows for mutual funds from retail investors has been also at a much, much elevated level. Now, last month was the financial year end month. So definitely you have redemption pressures coming through. People want to book profits, book cash, report decent numbers on their balance sheet, and then come month of April again, deployment will start. So I'm quite sure that for the month of April onwards, that is from this month onwards, you will see domestic data in terms of SIP collection also going on a higher level from here on. Our advice to investors have always been absolutely clear, and if you recollect our conversation last time, we advised investors to look at companies with strong earning visibility, good corporate governance, strong balance sheet, and management capabilities. At the same time, we had also advised that one should not be overexcited about this recovery, but approach the market in a disciplinary manner, and at regular intervals on corrections, go on deploy, allocating capital to the equity market to a great extent. And once the recovery path comes through, you will see that your investment in the equity market in strong companies will definitely deliver the kind of return that you would have expected for. We had also advised our clients that please do not go and buy into sectors which look weak, sectors which are vulnerable to this pandemic, companies which have corrected 50-60% from say 3-digit, 4-digit to maybe 3-digit, 2-digit or single digit, don't go and get yourself trapped into those kind of companies just because the stock prices have fallen. And remember one thing, stock prices fall because of inability of the managements to perform. And if you do go and commit your capital to such companies, there is possibility that your capital may get even eroded further. So we have advised that buy quality, though you will be able to buy few quantities of share, but you should always buy quality. Don't go and buy quantity of companies which are unknown to you, because that will again destroy your wealth and upset your health along with that. So overall, we have seen that whatever policy decisions that were taken by the government has led to higher income levels, both at the urban side and rural side. And a large part of our population is the young generation that will always keep the consumption theme ticking and alive. And hence we believe that since India was, is, and will always remain a consumption-driven economy, consumption is something that should not be ignored, and sectors and stocks associated with this consumption-driven sectors will also play a very important role on the recovery that we are likely to witness going forward from here on. My humble request to everyone is that you should be an informed investor, invest regularly, invest in parts, and invest for long terms. Now, with that perspective, there are certain sectors and certain companies that we are extremely positive on. And I'm quite sure, friends, that if last year was the worst situation that we were into, then this year and coming years in terms of recovery process is also going to be much, much better. And like I mentioned, friends, earlier we did not have a cure in terms of vaccine. Now we have a vaccine. And in India, according to the Honorable Prime Minister, there are companies which are working on newer vaccines which are likely to be available in the public domain sooner rather than later. And that will add to the vaccination process, which otherwise is at a little bit of slower pace. So I'm quite sure that all this will contribute to the recovery, and all the policy decisions that have been taken by the government will start reflecting upon the corporate's balance sheet over the next couple of quarters to come. Now, sectors that we are positive about. So there are at least about 6-7 sectors. What I have done, friends, is I have tried to shortlist a couple of companies from all those sectors. Sectors that will benefit because of the new normal, China plus one, that is China plus India, and most of the focus is now slowly and steadily shifting away from China and into the other Asian geographies like India, like Malaysia, like Thailand, like Vietnam, etc. People are shifting their base from China to these countries, and these countries are likely to benefit. And if India creates an environment of attracting more foreign direct investment, friends, then I think we are going to be in a very comfortable situation, both in terms of flows, long-term flows, as well as equity flows. Now, sectors that we are primarily positive on are specialty and agrochemicals. Why specialty and agrochemicals? Because this is one of the sector which is the beneficiary of China plus one policy, that is China plus India. And we have already seen most of the specialty and agrochemical companies report stellar numbers for the second and the third quarter. And I'm quite sure for the fourth quarter last year and the coming financial years, these specialty stroke agrochemicals will deliver much, much better returns. So which are those companies that we are positive on? Now, I'll try to go slow, and I am also requesting Krishnan sir that after this webinar, I will mail a list of these companies to Krishnan sir and to all our colleagues, so that they, in case if somebody misses out on certain names, then Krishnan sir and his team will be able to help you out in terms of providing this list of sectors and stock specific ideas which you can get invested in and create a decent portfolio. So don't lose heart. A list of all these companies will be available to you by end of the day today or by tomorrow. So in specialty and agrochemicals, the companies are PI Industries, Tata Chemicals, Viniti Organics. I will repeat again for your benefit. PI Industries, Tata Chemicals, and Viniti Organics. In consumption, I have clubbed FMCG, consumer durable, and consumer discretionary, all this together. So which are those companies? So the companies are by default Big Boy HUL, Hindustan Unilever, Tata Consumer, Marico, Dabur, ITC, Imami, Nestle, and Britannia. Along with this, the discretionary spend companies would be Titan and Jubilant Foodworks. So this is the entire universe of FMCG, consumer durable, consumer discretionary. Along with this, consumer durable companies that we are positive are Whirlpool, Voltas, Blue Star, and since the summer season is here in India, and as we all know, in certain parts of India, we have extreme to very severe summer season. So there is this company which manufactures coolers and which has close to about 40-45% market share, and the company is uh, well established, and I'm quite sure that this cooler companies are likely to do much better over a period of time. And all these companies, including Voltas, Havells, Bajaj Electricals, all these companies have in fact introduced new products of coolers in the market, and all those new products that are introduced by these companies have actually found tremendous traction in terms of consumer demanding for these products going to a new high. In private banks and strong NBFCs, uh, friends, as you all know, as a brokerage house, Geojit primarily believes that private sector banks have delivered much better results and much better returns compared to public sector banks. But thanks to the policy decision and changes that were put in place for the public sector bank and the entire merger process that was introduced by the Honorable Finance Minister, public sector banks are also likely to do well. But the weightage has to be towards the private sector banks. So over there, you have names like HDFC Bank, Axis Bank, ICICI Bank, IndusInd Bank, Federal Bank, IDFC First Bank, City Union Bank. Public sector banks, there are three banks that primarily Geojit is positive on, and those are State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, and Bank of India. So these are the banking sector names, both public as well as private, that we are positive on. On the NBFC side, HDFC Limited, Mahindra and Mahindra Financials, that is M&M Financials, Shriram Transport Finance, LIC Housing Finance, Canfin Homes, Cholamandalam Investments, and L&T Finance and Holdings. These are some of the strong NBFCs which we believe will perform over a longer period of time. Friends, we also heard during the budget the Honorable Finance Minister speak about creating infrastructure and modernizing the existing infrastructure. And for that, there is a huge budgetary allocation that was being set out by the Honorable Finance Minister. And if India has to clock, excuse me, if India has to clock the GDP growth rate of 10.5 as it was told by the Honorable RBI Governor, then there is going to be extreme need for spending on existing infrastructure and bringing it to the modernized level and creating new and modernized infrastructure. And in that scenario, friends, there are two commodities that are definitely going to get consumed. And I'm sure all of us will agree with me. Without metal and cement, you cannot actually create any infrastructure, durable, long-term, modernized infrastructure. So the cement companies that we are positive, first I will talk about cement companies and then I will touch upon metals. So in cement, we have a, excuse me, a total of about 6 or 7 companies, 3 large cap names, 4 rather. Large cap names are Ultratech, ACC, Ambuja, and Grasim. Amongst the mid-cap cement companies that we are positive are Dalmia Bharat, Ramco Cement, JK Lakshmi Cement, and Sri Cement. So this is the entire large as well as mid-cap universe of cement. In the metals, we have identified close to 5 companies, starting with Tata Steel, JSW Steel, JSPL, that is Jindal Steel and Power Limited, Hindalco, and Vedanta. These are the 5 metal companies that we are extremely positive on. And not only from the domestic consumption point of view, cement and metal companies will also have an advantage in terms of exports as well. So both local and global demand beneficiaries are likely to be metal and cement, more so on the local infrastructure creation that the government has spoken about, Bharat Nirman. Excuse me, I'll come upon IT and pharma. And friends, these are the 2 sectors that will continue to hawk the limelight for the longest period of time. We were all concerned about the IT sector when it came to visa restrictions, etc., etc. But what we did not recollect is that minus US, there is other world that exists for the Indian IT companies to cater to. And over there, most of the IT companies have performed much better. Locally also, the way the government is talking about digitization, Wi-Fi availability, not only restricted to the urban areas, but making it available to semi-urban and rural areas. And rural India is a big, big opportunity for the Indian IT companies to cater to. So in IT and just for your information, friends, 12th onwards, we will have Infosys, TCS, HCL Tech, Wipro. Then we'll have Mindtree, etc., announcing the numbers. So the preferred choice in the IT universe, starting with the large cap, TCS, Infosys, HCL Tech, Tech Mahindra, Coforge, L&T Technologies, L&T Infotech, Persistent Systems, Mindtree, and Cyient Limited. These are the large cap and mid cap IT names that we are extremely positive on. And I'm quite sure, friends, that IT is going to stay here to perform for a longer period of time. Along with this, thanks to the pandemic that unfolded in form of COVID-19, Indian pharmaceutical industry, as expected, has delivered to the world. And as we all know, India is the pharmacy to the world. And India has one of the largest production facilities when it comes to vaccine manufacturing capabilities. So which are those names? I mean, the list is long in the pharma universe, but I have limited it to about 6 or 7 companies. So which are those companies? So we have Cipla, Divi's Laboratories, Aurobindo Pharma, Dr. Reddy's, Ipca Laboratories, Glenmark, Biocon, and Granules. Friends, this pandemic has also thrown open opportunities to 2 sectors which are also associated with this particular epidemic that has unfolded. And those are life insurance companies and diagnosis companies. So which are those companies in the life insurance sector which we as a brokerage house are positive, starting with HDFC Life, SBI Life, and ICICI Prudential Life. And speaking about this life insurance sector, friends, India, as we all know, has a vast population, but unfortunately, lower single digit of this population is insured when it comes to life insurance. And today, the entire approach towards these life insurance products has changed. How? Earlier, one used to look at this life insurance as a product to save tax. But now, people have understood that if something, God forbidden, has to happen to them, then they need to insure themselves so that their dependents have some financial stability to fall back upon in case if something has to happen to the earning member of the family. And this has virtually changed the entire dynamic of the way people approach this particular product called life insurance. And I'm sure that along with LIC, I don't know when LIC will come out with a public issue. As and when they come out, definitely we'll come back to you. But these three private life insurance companies, HDFC Life, SBI Life, and ICICI Prudential Life, will tend to get a larger market share. Along with this, friends, diagnosis and healthcare is something that people have also started to focus on with a great extent. Getting oneself regularly checked is something that is now going to be a new normal. So you have companies like Thyrocare, Metropolis, and Dr. Lal Path Labs, which are associated with diagnosis sector. And I'm sure these companies will also do well. Along with this, healthcare related, we have one particular company that is positive, and that is Apollo Hospital. So pharma, life insurance, diagnosis, and healthcare. This is the entire universe related to this COVID-19, which is likely to perform quite well over a period of time. I will now come to autos and auto ancillary. So in autos, as we also, people were worried about lockdowns, manufacturing facilities working at a single digit capacity and not throwing out the maximum production facility because of the lockdown issues. But now that has also come back to the new normal. And I'm quite sure that demand for private mobility has come in with a large focus, and going forward, it is likely to do much, much better thanks to people moving from public to private mobility. So you have names like M&M, and along with this, friends, there is one more policy decision that was in principally approved by the government and is likely to come into effect from 1st April 2022, and that is the scrappage policy. Of course, there needs to be a little bit of homework or fine tuning, as we call it, that requires to be done to make customers attract towards this scrappage policy. And once their vehicle reaches that particular age limit, then scrappage policy will enable them to get a discount to purchase a new vehicle. That's what the framework is of this scrappage policy, but some fine tuning needs to be done, and I'm quite sure that the government is working and burning the midnight oil on that. So which are those companies? So M&M, and this scrappage policy, friend, is largely going to be beneficial to commercial vehicle manufacturing companies, because today if you go to see in India, out of 10 commercial vehicles, 8 or 9 of them will be in a pathetic condition. And large part of state transport utility or state transport corporation is likely to order huge numbers of buses from mainly 3 commercial vehicle manufacturing companies. Which are those? Commercial vehicle manufacturing companies, of course, M&M, Ashok Leyland, and Tata Motors, along with that Eicher Motors, because they are also into manufacturing of commercial vehicle, with Eicher brand as well as Volvo joint venture. So M&M, Ashok Leyland, Tata Motors, Eicher, along with this Maruti, two-wheeler companies, Bajaj Auto, Hero MotoCorp, TVS Motors, and a company that is associated with manufacturing tractors, earth-moving equipment, etc., is Escorts. So these are the primary two-wheeler, four-wheeler, commercial vehicle, agri-equipment, earth-moving equipment companies that we are positive on. And along with this, friends, auto ancillary companies, Bharat Forge, Minda Industries, Mahindra CI Automotives, Amara Raja Battery, Exide Industries are some of the OEM segment companies, and of course all the tire manufacturing companies we are positive on, because without a tire you don't have a complete safe vehicle on the road. So these are the auto ancillary companies that we are positive on. One more sector that is likely to do well on fallback of infrastructure spending and the government has spoken about injecting life in the real estate sector, which is the second largest employment generator after agriculture, is paint industry. So you have three companies over there: Asian Paints, Berger Paints, and Kansai Nerolac. Since I've spoken about infrastructure a couple of times in the last few minutes, it is prudent to touch upon this sector also, because government is going to open up tenders for private infrastructure companies to create expressways, roadways, highways, ports, airports, etc., dedicated freight corridors, etc., etc. So you have companies like KNR Constructions, PNC Infra, and Dilip Buildcon. Along with this, there is one more company which is a diversified, strong player for the last 8 decades, established in India, which is L&T, Larsen and Toubro. This company also has a very strong infrastructure arm as its business vertical. Telecommunication is going to be a very crucial part in the new normal. And over there, we have two primary companies: Reliance Industries, because of Jio Business, and Bharti Airtel. And these two, our belief is, will over the period of time start to command the largest subscriber base in India. And as we all know, that India is second but the last country in terms of tariffs. Here also, the verbatim that I have heard from the management of cellular service provider companies is that gone are the days wherein they used to exist in lower tariff. I think slowly, steadily, thanks to 4G and 5G, tariffs are going to get revised upwards. So the ARPUs from 200 to 250 rupees are likely to go to 300 to 350 over the next couple of quarters. Friends, alternative fuel is something, this is the last sector. Alternative fuel is something that we are extremely positive about. And as the Honorable Prime Minister has spoken about reducing the carbon footprints that we leave behind, and to make the environment a better tomorrow to live in for the next generation that will come in, we believe that alternative clean and green fuels will play a very important and a strategic role. So we have a couple of gas companies. They are not only into supplying gas to automotive industry, but they are also into supplying piped natural gas to households. And over there is one company, especially in the state of Maharashtra, in the city of Mumbai and its neighboring suburban area, is Mahanagar Gas Limited, MGL. Now, this company is the only natural piped gas provider to households in Mumbai. And along with this company, Mahanagar Gas Limited, MGL, also has dedicated gas distribution centers which go into the vehicles. Along with this, MGL, IGL, earlier known as Indraprastha Gas Limited, IGL, Petronet LNG, Gujarat Gas, and GSPL, that is Gujarat State Petronet Limited. So friends, this is the universe of at least 6 or 7 sectors, and I'm sure you must have not less than 50 plus companies by now in your portfolio. My humble request is that you don't need to go and buy all the companies. You need to introspect upon these companies, understand the sector, understand the companies, and then finally decide which are the sectors and which are the companies that you want to get invested in. And I'm sure all these sectors and companies that I've mentioned have got earning visibility, have got strong corporate management, and they have management with insight of how to take their business strategy forward and improve the earnings of the company and the fortunes of the people who get invested in those companies. There are certain, so if we like these sectors, which are those sectors? I'm sure you would have a question in your mind as to which are the sectors we should avoid for the time being, given the new normal of the pandemic that we have to deal with. So the sectors which you should possibly avoid in the current scenario I'm talking about are aviation, hotels and travel, that is hospitality and travel industry, multiplexes, and real estate. Why these sectors? Because all these sectors are directly affected by the footfalls. And if we are going to have lockdowns or mini lockdowns in large part of pan India or larger cities or tier 2, 3 cities, then footfalls in hotels, in malls, in multiplexes are going to be virtually at a zero level, thereby impacting the capability and capacity of the earnings. Aviation, because people would refrain from traveling as there are standard operating procedures that one has to follow. Real estate, why? Because it is labor intensive, and if there is going to be migration of labor like we saw last year, again in Mumbai since yesterday and day before yesterday, friends, we have started to hear news flows of laborers wanting to migrate back to their villages. So if laborers migrate to their villages, then there is going to be a shortfall of skilled and semi-skilled labor in sectors which are labor intensive, like real estate, like infrastructure, etc., etc. So this is one. These are some 3, 4 sectors: real estate, aviation, hospitality, travels, and multiplexes. These are some 4, 5 sectors. At least for the time being, you should avoid in case if you have absolutely low risk appetite. If you have high risk appetite, then there should be bargain hunting in some of the stronger companies within this sector, with an expectation that recovery will come through eventually, and these sectors will also start performing. But that's going to be a game of patience that all you will have to take on your own. Along with equity, lastly, I would like to touch upon gold, and I did it last time also. And from the peak of 55,000 rupees for 10 grams in India, I'm talking about Indian rupees, gold has come down to maybe about 45 or 46,000 rupees. That means, in effect, close to about 10,000 rupees correction we've seen in gold. As always, and I always, whenever I speak to Krishnan sir always asks me about gold. And I've been, like on equity, I've been a perennial bull. On gold also, I've been extremely positive over a period of time. And remember one thing, friends, gold is a natural commodity. The more demand of gold, the more mining of gold, the more severe stress it will put on natural reserves of gold world over. Output cost is not going to come down. Operating cost is not going to come down. Mining cost is not going to come down when it comes to mining of gold. When the end commodity in form of raw gold comes out in a lesser quantity, because of the mining cost being steady or going up, the cost of gold in dollar terms is going to get elevated to a higher level. And more so, if there is going to be unwanted geopolitical unrest across the globe, trade wars are again going to start kicking in, then definitely demand for safe haven in terms of gold investment is likely to go up. You can invest in different forms. There are various modes of investment in gold available, which are known to you: gold ETF, gold bonds, sovereign gold bonds, physical gold, etc., etc. Commodity, you have various contract, different sizes, which you can get invested in. Maybe about 15, 20, 30%. If you have a high risk appetite, you can allocate so much percentage of your asset allocation towards gold, large portion towards equity, because equity, as data tells us, for the last 15, 20 years, equity has always been a wealth creator if one has got invested smartly, with understanding and with a little bit of homework. I'm quite sure gold will deliver over a period of time. And friends, I reiterate what I mentioned in the beginning. Last year was an unknown devil in front of us. We didn't know how to approach this pandemic. Now, with 1 year down the line, we have to a certain extent understood how to tackle this evil which is in form of COVID-19. And along with this experience of last 1 year, countries across the world, including India, has got a shield of protection in form of vaccine. At least there are a couple of them available, and I think in the next 2, 3 months, we'll have many more coming through. Interest rates, friends, I don't think is likely to go at an elevated level given the scenario. And moreover, friends, liquidity injection by various central governments across the globe is definitely going to keep liquidity at an elevated level. But we have to mind that, because excess liquidity also leads to a little bit of uncertainty. It leads to asset risk bubbles getting created. And with that perspective, one needs to be careful whether excess liquidity is getting injected. And more so, very recently, we heard about one more episode in the United States of America about credit crisis. Some credit risk bubbles exploded, and that created a little bit of uncertainty over a period of time. Rupee dollar is likely to be in the range of 72.5 to 74.5. Remains to be seen with the RBI initiatives how strong the rupee gets. But my view, friends, is that we should be closer to 72.5, 73.5 for a longer period of duration when it comes to rupee dollar equation. And any level above 74 or beyond would be a great opportunity to repatriate certain uh, rupees to your home country in case if you are thinking of doing that. And as far as crude oil prices are concerned, friends, I think the new normal for Brent per barrel on dollar terms should be anywhere between 65 to $70 a barrel. I'm talking about the elevated level. If things normalize, if this pandemic has to translate into lockdowns in larger countries, then naturally consumption of oil will come down. In that case, you will see much more lower levels. That is the Brent I'm talking about, 65 to $70 a barrel, comfort zone. Mostly it is likely to between 60 and 65. And for the NYMEX, between 60 and $65 a barrel. Again, with a bias towards $60 and below, not beyond that. With this, friends, I will give my speech a bit of relaxation over here. I'm sure you would have questions, and I would request Krishnan sir to help me with the Q&A session. But like I mentioned, friends, equity is an asset creator. If you get invested smartly, wisely, it will always create wealth for you. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. And now over to Krishnan sir for the Q&A. Thank you, Krishnan.
Thank you, Gaurang Bhai. And thank you for all the stock recommendations. I'm sure once we receive these recommendation list from you, we will circulate to all the members who have attended this session. There were many questions asking, will you be sending this list across? Yes, we will certainly do. I have some few questions. In the meanwhile, may I request all of you to put the questions only in the Q&A, please, so that I don't have to, shuttle between the chat box and the Q&A box. So I already jotted down the initial questions that were coming in when you were talking. So let me start with that, and then I'll pick up some questions that comes at later stage. So we will spend the next 15-20 minutes. I hope it's fine, Gaurang, for another 10-15
absolutely, minutes. Absolutely. Feel good.
There's a question, basically a fundamental question on the government has huge targets on disinvestment this year. So do you think that targets will be achieved? And specifically, there is a question on BPCL. Do you think that is going to happen? What is the status? So your views, please.
So I strongly believe, Krishnan sir, the statement made by the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, and that statement was that government has got no business to be in business. And divestment process was there when the earlier government was also there. The difference between earlier and now is that you are seeing more proactive steps being taken to start with this divestment process, to get the government out to a minority stake and give the operating leverage to the private companies. BPCL is the first one that has hit the block as far as divestment is concerned. Now, the news flow that I hear is whether it is going to be lock, stock and barrel, one name under BPCL with all the businesses getting divested, or whether it is going to be broken into 2 or 3 different businesses and get divested. In either of this scenario, friends, it is going to create wealth. And I am quite sure that after BPCL, you are going to see many more public sector companies, strong balance sheet, go for privatization or go for divestment. As a disclosure, let me say that on all the 3 marketing companies, BPCL, HPCL, and IOC. We are extremely positive. We have a buy recommendation, and I would not be surprised to see BPCL at 550 and beyond, not only on the news flow of this divestment process when it starts actually happening at ground level, but more so of the company's capability to improve on the earnings once it goes to the privatization mode. So it will happen soon. Only thing is the state elections and these COVID-19 related issues have actually taken the front seat. That is why you don't hear too much now in terms of divestment, but there is a lot of behind the scenes homework that is happening, and we are possibly at the nasal stage of divestment kicking off in a big way, starting with BPCL. Krishnan sir.
Thank you. So there was some question on PSU banks. You mentioned SBI and Bank of Baroda, Bank of India, etc. But do you think that as a pack, there is an opportunity for the PSU banks to show some uptrend in the next 2 years, 2 years time, or do you think that they will still remain at these undervalued levels?
So Krishnan sir, because of regulation, I can speak on these three companies since we have a coverage. The other public sector banks, which are mid-size or small size, this is my personal opinion, Krishnan sir, and this is my personal understanding. Purely if I have to look at the last 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, or maybe more history of certain mid-size or small-size public sector banks, then rather than being wealth creator, they have been wealth destroyers. Pardon me for saying this, but that is the fact. And those mid-size, weak banks, both in terms of mid-cap and small-cap public sector banks, are likely to go on the block first for divestment. And there is going to be a large number of demand. The only thing is, if you don't want to venture out into unknown, then, and more so, Krishnan sir, there are a lot of news flows on a lot of names which are floating around. Though the government has not said or named a particular bank that will go in for divestment, but there are certain source-based, media-based reports that are doing the rounds of the market. Now, this is something that I want to sound a word of caution to all our clients. Wait with patience, with clarity. After the government has announced, only then go into those names. Don't try to jump the gun because you might be caught on the wrong foot. So primarily, if you don't want to venture out anywhere, if you don't want to get lost in the crowd, stick to SBI first. Second one is Bank of Baroda, and third one is Bank of India. These are the three names that you should possibly concentrate on.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarity. A number of questions have come on the automobile and auto ancillary sector, especially with the EV, electric vehicles likelihood of coming into India. And do you think that there would be an EV boom in the next few years? In that case, if expect on that anticipation, which are the automobile company and auto ancillaries like battery manufacturers that you would have in mind from a long-term perspective, say 3 to 5 years from now?
So let me say this, Krishnan sir, for the benefit of all our clients and all those who have joined this webinar, that all the 4-wheeler, 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler commercial vehicle manufacturing companies are at an advanced stage with a prototype of electric models, not one, but one too many, under various tests. The clarity that is awaited and the presentation that was done by the Automobile Manufacturing Association of India to the GST Council, to the Finance Ministry, is that request was made, presentation was made, that please bring down the GST slab of all those crucial components that go into making an electric vehicle. First, the presentation was made to the Finance Ministry and the Government of India was to bring down the tax level of electric vehicle, because today also we have not one but number of electric vehicles which are visible on the Indian roads, Krishnan. For example, just as a case I'm talking about, Tata Nexon had introduced Nexon, which is an EV version. The cost of Tata Nexon EV, which is a mid-size compact SUV, is somewhere close to about 15 lakhs of rupees ex-Delhi. On the road with taxes, it will go little bit higher. Now, if you have to make customers attract towards electric vehicle and not go in for conventional fossil fuel vehicles like petrol and diesel, then you have to keep the electric vehicle cost at a lower level. for that, naturally, they will have to reframe the GST slab and the taxes which are levied on electric vehicle, and that is work in progress. Second demand from the Automobile Manufacturing Association of India is that please be very clear about charging infrastructure. Today, you take any left or right turn and you will come across a petrol pump dispensing fossil fuels, petrol and diesel, and of course, compact natural gas. That kind of infrastructure is also necessary in terms of charging stations, which is still work in process. So I'm sure all these companies that I have mentioned during covering the automobile sector has also got our focus in the EV segment. All these companies have a prototype, not one, but one too many. So soon, the sooner or later we have clarity from the government and the GST Council in terms of this taxation and GST slabs, along with this clarity on charging infrastructure, I think you are going to see flood of electric vehicles coming into the market, Indian market, and all these companies will take to benefit.
Thank you. Now I'll get into, before I get into some general questions, a lot of stock specific questions have been asked.
Sure.
You seem to have avoided the Adani group completely. So what do you have against them?
No, I don't love him, nor do I hate him. But it is only the and there is a saying, whether you love or hate, you can't ignore. So you can't ignore Adani Group, Krishnan sir. I am absolutely clear about it. But there is a regulation constraint that exists as far as coverage on Adani Group companies are concerned. So I will not name any specific companies, but let me say this for the benefit of all our clients. There are certain group companies in Adani Group which you should not ignore. I am not giving any recommendation. Let me be very, very clear. This is no buy or sell recommendation. I will not name any particular company also. But there are certain strong companies within the Adani Group which you need to be absolutely focused upon. And whenever market gives you opportunity, grab that opportunity. I will not be specific in terms of buy, sell, or hold, but I can say this much.
Similarly, with respect to Bajaj Finance and Bajaj Financial Services, what?
Yeah, that I actually skipped the name, unfortunately, because I was scrolling my screen when I was going through all the recommendations. So we are extremely positive on both Bajaj Finance and Bajaj Finserv. I'm talking about company-wise. In terms of recommendation, I will restrict my comments to Bajaj Finance because on Bajaj Finserv, again, we don't have a coverage, but it's also a very strong company, great management, strong balance sheet, great visionary in terms of management capability to how to take the business forward. Bajaj Finance is also one of the NBFCs that we are extremely focused on, and we recommend Bajaj Finance.
Last year, if you remember, Gaurav Bhai, we spoke about Yes Bank because that the capital restructuring plan and others had just happened at that time. And now we have 1 year has passed. And it has been moving within the range of 16 to 18 rupees level, 15 to 18 level.
Sure.
So from a long-term perspective or from a investment perspective, how would you view it?
So I don't know, Krishnan sir, long-term is going to be how long for this Yes Bank? Very honest. I'm being very honest. Yes, there was change in management. Yes, there was capital restructuring. Yes, there was funds that were infused. But unfortunately, the third quarter number, if I have to see certain parameters of the third quarter number, then on some of the parameters, the numbers were better than what the street estimated. And in some of the parameters, it did report lower than expectation. So I think Yes Bank, though, I mean, again, over here, Krishnan sir, we had a coverage, I think we dropped it or we are not recommending Yes Bank. If I'm not mistaken, I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong. But Yes Bank will now be in a stock which will trade in the range unless and until there is something very magical that will be delivered in the fourth quarter. And there is expectation. There are noises on the street. I am not saying that this is a confirmation. There are rumors on the street that Yes Bank is likely to come out with better than expected fourth quarter numbers. But again, the proof of the pudding will lie in eating it, not seeing it. So let's see the numbers, and then possibly we might revisit our call on Yes Bank. But till that time, maybe 12 to 20, 25 rupees will be the broad range that will trade.
The last year also we saw a spate of IPOs that hit the market.
Sure.
And some of them have done well, some of them have not, some of them are still quoting below their IPO prices. Out
Sure.
of the IPOs that have come last year, what would be your best picks that you can probably recommend one or two of that? And how do you see the IPO market in this year? Do you think that investors should be looking at certain companies? I mean, LIC is a much touted name, but apart from this, is IPO is going to make a big difference in the investment choices for investors?
So, again, Krishna sir, I am not at all worried about liquidity in the market. Liquidity is enough and it will be at an elevated level. The only thing that we have to worry about is that liquidity should not overflow the brim, because that's when all the problems starts happening. Not only in India, anywhere in the world, in any geography, whether it is developed, emerging, or underdeveloped country. So that's something that you have to be mindful about. And more importantly, in the calendar year, starting January 2021 till date, that is today, 10th of April 2021, whichever IPO has hit the market, barring one or two, all of them have given stellar performance, stellar listing gains, and they have maintained that momentum. The problem comes in when there is excessive leverage funds going into an IPO purely from the point of view of listing gains. That is when the problem starts happening, because those investors who have only gotten with leveraged funds into an IPO on a large scale starts offloading because they have to repay their financial obligation and book their profits. So that is one aspect that one needs to be careful about. I am sure IPOs will continue to command valuation premium as well as demand from retail investors, provided the business is good and the floor price of that particular IPO is decided at a very rational level, not that lot of the chunk or the butter or the cream the promoter wants to take off and leave nothing for the subscribers. If that is the situation, then those IPOs will definitely get born. But via IPO note, there were a couple of IPOs that we had recommended a subscribe from a long-term point of view. Now, starting with the latest one, and then I'll go down the order. Nazara Technologies, Kalyan Jewelers, Craftsman Automation, Anupam Rasayan, MTAR Technologies, and MTAR, that is MTER Technologies, by the way, is one of the companies that I am personally extremely bullish about because of the kind of work that they do. They are into nuclear science, they are into providing solutions, IT solutions and software platforms to ISRO for their exploration purpose. So this is something personally that I feel MTAR or MTAR technology should do well. Stovecraft Limited is something that is likely to do well, will perform well. Home First Finance Company Limited, and lastly, one paint company that got listed in the recent time is Indigo Paints Limited. So, Krishna sir, these were the IPOs on which we had an IPO note subscribed, and as and when the IPOs start coming and hitting the equity market, primary market, we will definitely be supporting our clients with the research note, whether to subscribe or to avoid. Krishna sir?
The microfinance companies have had a topsy-turvy year last year. So, what would your picks be from that segment, and how do you look at that sector specifically going forward?
So, microfinance purely, again, Krishnan sir, because of the pandemic, people thought that semi-urban and rural India will be the worst affected. And to my surprise, and to most of the fundamental analysts' surprises, semi-urban and rural India was the least affected, and urban areas which were the worst affected. Again, thanks to the COVID hits that we have all across the globe. So our sense is that there was a sense of insecurity amongst investors that microfinance company, because of the nature of business that they do, exposure that they take primarily to the semi-urban and rural India, the ticket size loan that they give out, the repayment of principal and interest, the run rate will fall down. But that was not the case. In fact, microfinance companies were the ones that reported a stronger set of numbers when it came to the repayment capability of principal and interest. And the run rate was plus 90%, if I'm not mistaken, if I recollect it right. So microfinance companies, we like Ujjivan Finance, we like AU Small Finance, We also like a small finance bank, which was a part of Ujjivan and now is a separate entity. Ujjivan Small Finance Bank is something that we like. So these are in microfinance primarily two companies, AU Small Finance, Ujjivan Finance, Small Finance, and Credit Access Grameen is the third one that we are pursuing. Krishnan sir?
Great. Thank you. Uh, you mentioned about gold as an investment choice. So uh, I just got a very interesting tidbit just before we started, saying that if you have invested 100 rupees in the stock in Sensex in 2000, it is worth 1,320 today. And if I invested 100 in gold, it is worth 1,074, which means that gold has also had a stellar run. And there is, do you think that this sort of in the taking a last 2 decade perspective, that gold has appreciated 1,000 times, 1,000% rather? Do you think that sort of an appreciation possibility exists maybe in the next 10, 15 years? Or how do you look at that precious commodity?
So, Krishnan sir, one thing about equity as an asset class we can say is with surety that yes, it will deliver at least on the conservative side anywhere between 10 to 15% return per annum. Unfortunately, we can't say with that surety when it comes to gold as an asset class because of the nature that asset class is all about. But even if I have to take the worst case scenario, I think I'm talking about Indian rupees, Krishnan sir, because I track Indian rupees and a little bit of dollar related prices of gold to a certain extent. And what I, as a fundamental analyst, understand about gold prices in rupee terms, I think if all my hypothesis that I have and all my understanding that I have goes right, then we should be looking at possibly 58 to 60,000 rupees 10 grams gold by December 21 and early part of calendar year Jan March 2022. And in dollar terms, I think we should be closer to 2,000 to 2,200 an ounce. $2,000 to $2,200 an ounce on gold. This is in terms of dollars. If all my understanding and hypothesis is right.
Your quick response on two stocks, Granules India and Chalet Hotels.
So Chalet Hotels is something that we don't track, unfortunately. And like I mentioned, Krishnan sir, hospitality industry is something that we should avoid because we don't know how severe this lockdown is going to hit us. And sectors and companies which are vulnerable, we should avoid in this kind of times. We should not, venture out into these kind of sectors. Wait for it. Let the things evolve over a period of time. Then possibly take a call. Sorry, which was the first one, Krishnan sir?
Granules India. It seems to be going against the trend now.
Yeah. So we are positive on Granules India, and I think it is one of the pharma-related stocks that we have spoken about. Unfortunately, from 260 onwards, the rally was one way, and it almost went up to 30% within a period of 1 month. There was an issue with respect to certain news flows with Granules India, but I am given to understand is that the management is working to rectify those shortfalls which were related to the manufacturing capability and capacity. And I'm quite sure that in the coming quarters, the negativity will be a thing of past. The issues that were there with respect to manufacturing capability and capacity should be resolved, and we should have better numbers from that. But we remain positive on Granules India. So if you bought it at an higher level, great times to average Granules India.
Reliance has sort of plateaued down over the last few months. It's moving within a range, and most probably it is because of the uncertainty on the future retail deal that is going around. So what do you think about Reliance and the prospect of the deal?
So deal, unfortunately, Christian sir, when anything, any deal, any merger, any acquisition lands up in the court of law, whether it is India or overseas, uh, what is uncertainty is how soon the resolution is going to come. And this one is again two big names against couple of other big names. So one will have to just be patient enough, but minus the future retail business either coming to Reliance or not coming to Reliance. As a brokerage house, we've been positive on Reliance for I think more than a decade. We continue to remain positive for many more years. And I am quite excited about a couple of things that the Honorable Chairman Mr. Mukesh Ambani said in the AGM, the last concluded one, and that was the focus on oil to chemical business, the focus on telecom business, 5G, focus on retail and digital business, and along with that, putting the right strategies and making the conventional business, family business under the balance sheet of Reliance balance sheet much more stronger. We remain positive. I think 2000 to 1800 is the zone wherein it consolidates. It's a great zone to invest into Reliance, or if you want it at a higher level, add more. In terms of target, well, if I recollect right again, if numbers are serving my memory right, 2450 to 2650 is the target on Reliance Industries.
Right. Last year, no, we have seen record FII flows coming in, and unfortunately, the DI domestic inflows were sort of negative. Now we are this month at least, we have for the first time after a long over the year, we have seen the domestic inflows have also started to pick up. Do you think this trend will continue? And do you think we can expect FII flows to be generally positive this year? Because 36 billion is quite a big sum. What is the sort of flows is the market expecting from FIIs and DIIs this year?
So Krishnan sir, what I've been telling lately to all the investors is that we have to start inculcating a habit of looking at Sensex and Nifty, that is Indian equity market, at a much more higher elevated level. What has happened, Krishnan sir, is that as investors, we have never seen these kind of level. Last year was an exceptional level because before March end and April, when this pandemic started hitting the entire globe, and when India went into a lockdown, total lockdown, severe lockdown mode, it had already generated a stellar set of return. Because of lockdown, there were various assumptions, permutation, combination, views, outlooks that were put in public domain, which actually scared the investor. And because of that, we saw exceptional number of redemptions happening and profit booking happening, both from direct equity market as well as investment into mutual fund. Last month, like I was mentioning, it was month of March, financial year end. So naturally, people would want to really make a strong balance sheet and make a presentation. And then starting the month of April, second, third week onwards, again the flow starts coming back. And already the flows have started coming back. That's what the AMFI data has started to reflect upon. And I'm quite sure, Krishnan sir, that starting April onwards, you are going to see much more stronger flows via equity market participation, using the SIP route and getting invested into the various mutual fund schemes, equity related, that are floated in the market. Along with that, like I mentioned earlier, you can love India or hate India, but you cannot ignore India, sir. That is something that is no fund manager. However, wherever he is, he has to look at India. And India is going to, if just imagine, sir, if the RBI governor is talking about 10.5% GDP growth rate, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, that there is any other country which is even closer to this. So from that respect, you can just imagine in the next 3 years, 5 years down the line, where we can be in terms of Sensex.
Thank you. Last year also saw the influx of new investors. Many new investors have come to the market last year. I think we have seen record number of account openings that have happened. So there's an interesting question from one of our clients who's saying that I've just started my investment journey a month ago. So what would be your advice for a new investor? What should be his strategy? What stock would you recommend that these people look at, and how they should start their investment journey going forward, especially given this market situation at this point of time?
So Krishnan sir, last year, pardon me for saying this because I came across a lot of cases. Last year, like you rightly mentioned, a lot of investors got attracted towards equity market. A lot of them were working from home. Most of them had extra disposable time. So they opened an account, got an online registration, they opened a trading account, DP account, and they started dabbling into the stock market, not knowing the reality of stock market or without understanding the stock market. That did lead to most of these traders who came to stock market last year with a very bitter experience. But along with the traders or speculators, there were genuine investors who also came to the stock market, like this gentleman we are speaking about. So my humble request is that avoid mid cap and small cap universe in the current stage, because you have just come to the stock market. And to have a very pleasant experience, stick to large caps, invest in large caps. Don't look at 7, 8 sectors which Gaurang has mentioned just now in the webinar. Look at these. This advises primarily, Krishnan sir, to the new investors, like you just mentioned. Look at 3 sectors: IT, pharma, and banking. And in these 3 sectors, look at two companies or three companies, and possibly start getting invested in those companies, picking up maybe 2, 3 sectors, and do an SIP in those companies every month. Start allocating capital to that instead of putting all your money at one time. I think this will translate into a very strong experience. You will possibly achieve the objectives and goals with which you have got invested into the equity market. And 3 or 5 year down the line, if you would, look back upon your portfolio, not only will you have strong companies in your portfolio, but you will have a very handsome return.
I'm asking this question because this was the first question that came to us. This client is asking, he is invested in Quality Ice Creams, which there was a rumor of a merger with Hindustan Lever or Haldiram. So what is the status? Do you have any idea or update on that? Of course, a lot of people have asked questions on DHFL, Vodafone, and other Tata Tele and other questions, which we have not taken because these are all management related issues. So since this question came up at an early stage, I'm asking this question.
Again, the talk or the rumor was there in the market about HUL taking over this company, etc., etc. But unfortunately, you should buy stocks not only with this takeover news flows or merger news flows, but you should look at companies with their standalone capability and capacity in terms of delivering on businesses that they are into respectively. More than often, Krishnan sir, there are a lot of gossips and rumors that go into the market. Unfortunately, I personally don't have any specific information or news flow with respect to this particular company. So I would only advise this investor or gentleman that if you do get rallies, come out of such companies and get into the 50 odd or 50 plus companies that have it.
So before I wind up, just one question one thing was on, the question is on oil. How do you look at oil as in the next year? Because last year when we were talking, it was probably at the lowest of its level, and today we are at about $60 to the barrel. So what is the expectation in terms of oil prices going forward?
So what understanding I've had is that, sub $30, Krishnan sir, oil prices globally is virtually not viable for certain countries which are into oil producing activity or oil producing nations, because their cost of production itself is much, much higher. So it is always if the cost of crude oil prices is below the cost of production, then that also leads to currency crisis, because that respectable country also goes through an economic downturn because of the lower crude oil prices. So I think, like I mentioned, for NYMEX, I think more or less $60 to $65 a barrel should be the new normal, unless and until there is some sudden geopolitical event which leads to global supply constraints in terms of crude oil. So 60 to 65 should be the new normal, and 65 to $70 a barrel should be the new normal as far as Brent is concerned. I only hope that the Suez Canal does not get blocked again.
I think we are still questions are coming in, and it will take another half an hour to an hour to complete the questions of all the investors. So what we will do is the unanswered questions, we will try to consolidate and send it to you. Maybe when you have time in the next couple of days or the course of next week, if you can give your review, it will be wonderful. We will share with our investors. I'm also happy to inform you that we had more than 400 people attending this webinar, which is very gratifying to note that we have the interest of the investors and especially you are still a big draw, Gaurang Bhai, in this part of the world.
Thank you so much.
I think your fan club is quite large here, and like we mentioned last year, it is our intention to have you more often. So let us at least plan at least a quarterly session going forward this year.
Sure,
I
sir.
think from that perspective, because this year I think the investors need to be more guarded in terms of where the markets are going to move in, because the changes are happening so fast that we have to be on guard all the time. And thank you very much, Gaurang Bhai, for taking your valuable
Sure.
time, being with us, answering all our questions, and also being very stock specific and very clear in your thought process as to how the markets will be. And of course, you like you rightly said, you can't ignore India, and that theme still continues. And oh, I see Mr. Shamsuddin also in.
Hi, sir.
I think he came in a little late. Mr. Shamsuddin, would you like to say a few words before we close? I think is on mute.
I
So
think
anyway, thank you, Gaurang Bhai.
mute.
Thank you very much, my
Thank you, sir.
dear clients, for being part of this session, and you look forward to our next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Krishnan sir, and thank you for giving this opportunity. And I wish health, wealth, and prosperity to all. May God be kind enough to keep you in good shape. And once again, Krishnan sir, it's always an honor to chat with you and all the clients and all my team members at Barjeep. And I wish you all the very good.
Thank
for the
you.
future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Take care. Bye-bye.
In the last 25 years, the returns on various financial asset classes like bank deposit, gold, and real estate have multiplied several times. But there are a few select investments in the Indian capital markets that have had the potential to appreciate exponentially over 100 times. If you had known this at the right time, you would have taken the right investment decision, which is precisely why you need an expert's validated advice when it comes to investing. Welcome to Barjeep, one of the few SCA-approved financial intermediaries in UAE. We are wealth builders, guiding customers since 2001. We have serviced over thousands of them till date, and today we cater to large segments across investor groups. This speaks about our enormous goodwill and their undiluted trust. And we have earned that trust by telling, not selling. We educate you on the investment opportunities that are ideal for you. We then help you make an informed decision, impartial and unbiased, keeping your long-term goals in mind. And with us, everything is long-term, be it commitment, relationships, or success. We offer comprehensive insights across a wide range of products through a holistic approach. We ask you the most important questions, the answers to which will help you focus on your investment objectives. For example, you work for over 30 years. Are you saving enough for the next 30 years? For life goals like children's education, your daughter's wedding, or your retirement. Think about it. You work hard to earn your money. Does your money work hard enough for you? Barjeep, let's build your future. Come, let's talk.